Welcome to our homebuyer seminar. My name is Brielle Rambo and I'm a realtor with Divine Fog Realty.
And I am Christina Campbell and I'm a mortgage loan officer with Movement Mortgage. The first step in the home buyer journey is going to be to get pre-approved because you need to know how much you qualify for and what loan options are out there and available for you. This will better equip you when you start to work with a real estate agent like Brielle, so that you have a clear focus on what type of homes that you are going to look for, and you know what price range and what your loan qualifications are. The things that are going to be a part of the pre-approval process. We are going to be pulling your credit, and we're going to be looking at your credit score. We're going to look at your debt to income ratios, and we're going to look at how much available funds that you have for a down payment. Those are going to be the most important parts of the pre-approval. Typically, the credit score that we need to shoot for is going to be a minimum of a 580, but ideally you would want to be over a 620 because you'll have more loan options available there. When you're between a 580 and a 620, you're going to be limited to basically FHA loans, USDA loans, or a VA loan if you are a veteran. But once you get over 620, you're going to have first-time homebuyer options available if that would help you, and also conventional loans. So the reason that you want to get pre-approved, it's kind of like going in for a checkup. You need to know where everything stands so that you know exactly what you can do. Sometimes I recommend people check in about 6 months before they actually want to move, because that way if there's anything that you actually need to do to improve your credit scores, you'll have that knowledge and go ahead and be able to work on that. And that way in the 6 months when you are actually ready to move, you hopefully will be ready with your credit scores and have that part taken care of. Another important reason why you need to get pre-approved is in this market, you will need to have a pre-approval letter to accompany any offer that you put in on a property. It definitely makes you more competitive. The seller can then see that you are financially prepared to make the purchase and you are qualified.
So once you're pre-approved, you can now start shopping for your home, and that's where I come in. You want to make sure that you choose one agent only to show you homes. Unless it is outside of their service area, you're going to want to focus on only working with that one agent. And also I want to remind you that you don't have to call the one on the sign. Usually they're the listing agent. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you look for homes. Not only will I set you up in our local MLS where you will receive alerts as soon as new listings become available on the market, but I also encourage you to continue looking on Zillow and Realtor.com and these other third-party websites to see properties that may not be in the local MLS and may be outside of that search area. For FSBO homes, of course I can get that information for you, but there are also specific sites geared towards for sale by owners. You can also find them in the local newspaper ads, and sometimes on these third-party websites they'll be listed as a non-agent listing or for a sale by owner listing. So once you're pre-approved and we know what kind of loan parameters you're going to have, we can focus on what type of house is going to be right for you. My goal is to make sure that I put you in front of those right houses and we don't waste any time. We want to make sure that we always position you in a strong place. At this point, normally I get down to the specifics. We're going to find out what your needs are and what it is that you're actually looking for. When you're buying a home, you're not just buying the home, you're buying the neighborhood as well. So I will also provide you information like neighborhood statistics, local schools, and other tax-related information that you're going to want to have with the purchase of your property. So all the while that you're shopping for property, we want to make sure that we stay in touch with your lender. This is important because we want to make sure the homes that we're looking at qualify for your loan type. You also want to make sure that you stay abreast of any changes with the interest rates, along with what your payments would look like through a cost illustration sheet. This is the exciting part. This is where we write the offer. And at this point, you want to start competitive. In this market and in any market, if you really want the home, you always want to start with your most competitive offer. There's a lot of different things that go into a competitive offer, and no two offers are the same. along with no two transactions being the same. As soon as we submit an offer, once that offer is accepted, you will then be required to submit an earnest money deposit that will be held by either an attorney or our brokerage. So with an earnest money deposit, you can kind of think of this as a bargaining chip. So the bigger the earnest money deposit, the stronger your offer is, essentially. So what does the seller need? Will they need a faster closing, or will they need a shorter closing? Or are there other things that they need? It's important to make sure that you stay in communication with a selling agent, which is something that I do, to make sure that we understand what the seller needs in this transaction. You may have heard that you can write a letter to the seller to tell them how much you love the house and how much you want the house. In this market, that's actually not the case. Basically, you want to make sure the seller remembers you and your offer. Also, a strong negotiation tactic in any offer is to limit the amount of contingencies that you have. Waiving the home inspection, waiving the appraisal, and waiving any repairs could also make your offer stronger in this market, and is something that we see a lot of. Now, I don't necessarily advise clients to waive a home inspection. I think that the few $100s can save you thousands in the long run, but at the end of the day, I do as my client wishes, and if they want to waive those contingencies and make that offer a bit stronger, then that's something that we do as well. Something that we have seen recently in a lot of offers that make them stronger is an escalation clause. An escalation clause is something that's put in place alongside an offer to essentially outbid other offers that come in. So how this works is usually it's done in increments. So let's say you have an offer for $150,000 and somebody puts an offer in for $160,000. Well, if you had attached an escalation clause to that offer for $167,000 by 500 increments, you would beat out that other offer by $500 above their highest asking price until you reach a certain threshold. Once you submit your offer, it could be accepted, declined, or countered. Most of the time, an offer is not going to be declined unless it is such a low number that it can be considered insulting. 99% of the time, you're going to have a counter back if it's not accepted. And this means you're then going to go into a negotiation process. And anything during this time really can be negotiated in the contract. If you want the curtains on the windows, that could be negotiated into the contract. So at this point, you could reach a situation where you're going to counter. And essentially what a counter is you go back and forth in a negotiation until all the parties agree to the terms. At this point, the contract has been ratified and you've given the brokerage an earnest money deposit. Now we move on to the home inspection if there is one. At this point, during the home inspection, you have the option usually to continue in the contract or ask for repairs when you receive your home inspection report. So to give you an idea of what a home inspection entails, essentially a home inspection is there for your protection. A home inspector does not diagnose and repair, but he does assess what he can visually see. So if it is something like a crack in the side of the wall, or it looks like previous water damage, he will make sure that he notates these things in the inspection report, and also advises as to whether you would need a qualified professional to come and look at these things that have been discussed in the home inspection report.
So once you are ready for your loan application, there's going to be obviously several steps. The first thing that we're going to be doing is locking the interest rates. In this environment, it's really important to do that right now because the rates are just continuously going up. So you want to lock in and make sure you're protected and that your payment is solid and you know what it's going to be and you don't have to worry about it going any higher. After you lock the interest rates, we're going to be generating a packet of loan disclosures. It's probably going to be 40 or 50 pages of documentation that you will need to review and e-sign. That is going to enable us to order your appraisal and actually get the loan through our process. After you get your loan disclosure signed, we're going to also collect documentation from you, such as the pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, ID, or anything like that that the loan requires. We're going to take all of that together and we're going to submit that loan to underwriting. where basically the underwriter is going to review all of the pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, and they're going to be checking to make sure all the information on the loan application matches all the information on your actual documents. They're going to look at your credit, they're going to calculate your debt to income ratios, and they're going to check it against the guidelines of the loan program to make sure that you are in fact qualified for the program that we have chosen for you. Usually the underwriting process takes about 24 to 48 hours, and then you will get your loan approval. So after we get the loan approval, we are going to be ordering the appraisal. That usually takes about 10 days for us to get back. So during that 10 days, we're going to be working to gather any loan conditions that the underwriter has stipulated for us. Little nitpicky things like maybe we're missing a bank statement page, maybe your ID was a little fuzzy, things like that. We're going to be kind of working during that appraisal period to gather all the conditions, hopefully so that when the appraisal comes in, we have everything that we need to submit it back to the underwriter so that the underwriter can then issue the clear to close. So we're going to be gathering all those conditions while we're waiting on the appraisal so that when the appraisal comes back, when the title work comes back, we can kind of match everything back up and submit everything back to the underwriter for them to do one last check and issue your clear to close. So once you are cleared to close, a closer who's going to work in conjunction with your closing agent or attorney that's going to actually do the loan closing for you. They're going to go back and forth, they're going to get some figures together and finalize the amount of cash, if any, that's going to be due at closing from you. That usually takes place about 24 to 48 hours prior to closing, which should allow you enough time to go to the bank and get a cashier's check if you need any money at closing.
So right before closing, usually I set this 2 days before closing day, you're going to do what's called a final walkthrough. A final walkthrough is basically a final inspection of the property to make sure everything is as it was when you entered into the contract. Of course, things like burst pipes, other issues that can happen during the time that you go under contract until you reach closing can happen. So this final walkthrough is basically protection to make sure that nothing has arisen during that time.
So on the day of closing, that you will just bring your cashier's check and a copy of your photo ID to closing. So then basically, as far as what the closing entails, is you're going to be sitting and signing a lot of documents, and it'll probably take 30 to 45 minutes. At the end of that is when you're going to get your key. This is also a time when you need to double check and make sure you're getting credit back for that earnest money deposit that you made when you first got your contract ratified. You're also going to receive credit back for any other money that you've put into the transaction, such as paying for the appraisal fee or if you prepaid for homeowner's insurance. Those are going to be credited to you on your final closing disclosure. So on the day of closing, those things are going to reduce the amount of money that you're going to bring to closing.
Thank you guys for joining us on this journey to home ownership.
And if you have any questions whatsoever, either comment below, message us, or reach out to us individually, and we'd be happy to help.